So it doesn't matter to you. It's not going to influence your decision. Things can't change simply because people express ideas and use the forum of YouTube. That doesn't influence political leaders. Twitter doesn't influence political leaders. Twitter and YouTube aren't used by the mass of the population to try and influence political leaders. Political leaders don't really care what people like me say on YouTube.
No, I don't think that political leaders do care what people like you and I say on YouTube. I'm going to try and defend this position. I'm going to try and show that you're basing this on an ideological identification with, one of my recent subscribers, Object A, will appreciate this. There's an identification with the big other that's taking place here that's problematic. But I'm going to put it into more analytic terms than that for you.
Well, they might not care about me in particular, but they certainly do care about the millions of people just like me. And they certainly are influenced by the actions of YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, etc.
What's important to remember here is that there's this thing called the fallacy of division, right? Fallacy of division points out that it's fallacious to assume that just because X is true about the set, it's true about each constituent part of the set. So if we say political leaders are influenced by social media, that doesn't mean that I, as an individual, influence political leaders by being on social media, right? So, fact of the matter is that, okay, there's this thing called social media out there in the world, and that has some influence on political opinion. Really, though, like the places where it does influence political opinion in any substantive way is not in bullshitting on YouTube, but it's in using avenues of social media to organize politically, right? Think of the Green Revolution, think of the Arab Spring, even Occupy Wall Street, and et cetera, et cetera. The places where social media has an impact is when it is used to organize. It is not, I don't buy that it has an impact as much when we're talking about the morality of the Snowden leaks or something like that on YouTube. And what I definitely don't buy is that you and I, on the basis that YouTube has some political importance, that you and I therefore have some political importance by participating in this discussion. It doesn't follow. It's fallacious to make that leap.
If it wasn't the case, the NSA wouldn't be spying on people's Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube accounts, would they?
It seems to me to be extremely dubious to suggest that the reason the NSA are spying on people's Facebook, Twitter, etc. is because, Facebook and Twitter have some political importance. I mean, fact is, the NSA spying on people's Facebook and Twitter has all sorts of effects, right? I mean, think of panopticon or panopticism and such like this. I mean, surveillance is always a mode of political control. It doesn't mean that like if the NSA had access to all of the cameras in convenience stores or bodegas or something like that, that would also be a form of political control. It doesn't mean that there has to be anything politically substantive or politically dangerous or important happening in that bodega, right?
So, yes, indeed, we as a community, a very wide and now global community, can impact and influence ideas.
Again, this is a really hasty identification with the Lacanian big other. I'm going to keep dropping that reference. That's for you, Object A. There's this really hasty identification between I as an individual and this global community. I mean, fact of the matter is that, yes, maybe Facebook, Twitter, whatever you like, can have political impacts, particularly, again, when they're used for real-world organization. But that doesn't mean if I were to delete my YouTube account tomorrow, how much of an impact do you really think it would have on the global discussion, right? So the point of the matter is not to say that Facebook and YouTube have no effect, right? That's obviously stupid. The point is that you making YouTube videos condemning the morality of people like the skeptical heretic and unseen perfidy, you doing that is not identical to getting something done, right? It doesn't have moral content to make YouTube videos condemning people. That's the point, right? I'm totally unpersuaded by this by you pointing out that that Twitter influences people, particularly again in the Arab world. You could probably point to examples in Latin America and stuff like this. You point to plenty of examples of social media mattering. That doesn't mean that you, as a political agent, are doing anything moral by hopping on YouTube. It doesn't mean that you, as a political agent, are going to get anything done by making YouTube videos. Sorry, like this identification between you and Facebook, YouTube, Twitter as such, social media as such, is pure ideology in the Marxian sense, right? Pure false consciousness. It's pure bullshit.
But I can pretty much guarantee that a great deal of Americans have been informed about the actual reality of a universal healthcare system due to experiencing a global community like Facebook.
Yeah, and fat load of good that did us. That's not to say, mind you, like, I'm not against Obamacare. Obamacare is a blatant, however, it's a blatant compromise, right? We can talk about whether or not Americans like, the idea of universal healthcare. We can have that conversation. Fact of the matter is that Obamacare was constructed more or less to protect insurance companies, right? Like, it's not social media, it's not public opinion that changed this, right? It's certain shifts in the constellation of major capital. I mean, if you want the breakdown, you can go further. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the cost of the healthcare system made it, impossible for businesses to function within American borders. So therefore, they had to pass some kind of healthcare law. But they had to pass a healthcare law that protected the insurance companies. So this is where you get the whole healthcare debate. To think that the public opinion on YouTube had anything to do with that conversation is absurd. The fact of the matter is that you if you really want an understanding of what went on in the healthcare debate, don't look at YouTube. Rather, look at the business section of the Times. Look at the Wall Street Journal. Look at stuff like this, right? Money determines politics in the United States, not public opinion, right? All public opinion, the only function that public opinion has in the United States is that it's this thing that has to be managed and accommodated to, and there has to be propaganda put up to it, right? It doesn't you can't say that public opinion changed and therefore we got something done. Actually, public opinion in favor of universal healthcare was much, much, much higher before the propaganda blitz put out by the right, right? Before, let's say, 2007, the public was overwhelmingly in favor of a single-payer healthcare plan. Before YouTube, the public was overwhelmingly in favor of a single-payer healthcare plan. Even now, the majority of Americans, I'm still pretty sure, have to check the data, but I'm still pretty sure they're overwhelmingly in favor of a single-payer healthcare plan, right? If you look at the majority of public objections to Obamacare, it's not that it's this terrible evil thing like the right would have you believe, but it's that it doesn't go far enough, right? That's the issue. So, fact is, we create this bill. It allows businesses to function within U.S. borders without paying out the ass for healthcare. Reduces the cost of healthcare for businesses. It also protects the insurance companies. And then we package it up and make it seem like a great victory for the public. That's not public opinion influencing policy, right? That's public opinion being catered to. Okay? And if you want to say that YouTube, Facebook, Twitter allows for that to happen better, yeah, that's probably true. Good job.
I would say quite strongly that one of the main reasons why America did not launch, the president did not launch attacks against Syria. And yes, you can say, no, that's too broad a thing to swing, was due to the impact of social media.
There are 1,000 reasons why we didn't attack Syria, and sure, you can say that social media was a part of that, that's fine. But what I definitely don't buy is patting ourselves on the back as individuals within YouTube talking about politics because, the United States did not launch an attack on Syria, right? I don't think that we should be all like, ooh, Obama didn't launch an attack on Syria, so we have we are morally, vindicated or something like that, or our hard work making videos debating people on YouTube has paid off, or this doesn't constitute any form of moral payoff, right? Like it's clear ideology, again in the Marxian sense, to say that social media had some impact, may or may not have had some impact on Barack Obama not launching an attack on Syria, and so therefore me making videos on YouTube about politics has moral content, right? Again, there's a fallacy of division present there, and I don't think it follows. Again, it's pure ideology, pure identification with the big other, right?
This claim that people on YouTube can't change wills or minds. Well, therefore, people like me, you, Skep, or whatever, wouldn't be doing videos because there'd be no point. Unless, of course, we're only promoting our own egos.
Really? You think that it's either we are trying to change minds, right? We are trying to be ideological evangelists, or we are trying to prop up our own egos? That either or strikes you as being compelling? I would say the exact opposite. I would say that being an ideological evangelist is a way to prop up your own ego, right? Claiming that, my lowly YouTube channel with my 400 subscribers, each of whom I love very much, by the way, my lowly YouTube channel has any effect on global politics seems to me to be a much more egotistical statement than the opposite. Fact is, the reason I'm on YouTube has nothing to do with whether or not I think I can influence the outcome of political events. The reason I'm on YouTube is because I like talking to people. And I like debating people. And I like learning from people. And I like doing all of these things. I'm on YouTube because I get something out of it. And that's great. I've made wonderful relationships here. And I've made wonderful friendships here. And I've had wonderful conversations here. Right? And all of that can justify my being on YouTube without for a second thinking that I am somehow impacting global events. That's ego, right?
And you most certainly did, of a 12-minute video, 7 to 10 minutes, where all you talked about was to be blunt, all you did was espouse the greatness and wonder of Skep.
Are you serious? I mean, really? Like, the point of that video was not to espouse the greatness and wonder of Skep, right? The point was to say, this is where I think Skep is. This is where I think I am. This is where I think you and Ella are, right? That's the point. And I did say in that video, I like Skeptical Heretic, and I think he comes across his positions honestly, right? But that point wasn't to be, woo, woo skeptical heretic, right? Like, that wasn't the point of that statement. The point of that statement was to say to you guys, please don't pull me into this crusade against them, right? That was the point. It's not the same thing.
I'm not putting your name there. I'm just going to tell you I've done the video and put a link that this is my response to you. Hey? You didn't have the decency to do that for me, did you?
You seem to think that this is some kind of, like, knockdown argument. You said it in my comments, I think, more than once, and you've said it in your video too. Fact of the matter is that I made the video. I uploaded the video. While the video was uploading, I had to run and do some things, and I came back and totally forgot to write PMs. Didn't write a PM to you. I didn't write a PM to Ella. I didn't write a PM to pretty much anyone about it. So, sure, I apologize for not PMing you with the link to the video, but I don't feel particularly bad about it, and I don't feel it reflects on my character in this way. You know, you didn't have the decency to do this. Ridiculous.
Oh yes, and the dumb American remark. As I've maintained, 90-odd% of my friends on YouTube are Americans.
So I don't know if you know this, because I know that in America, the white-black divide, or whatever you like, the history of race relations between white people and black people is obviously very different than in other places of the world. But in America, we have an ongoing joke where you can tell a racist by somebody. It's obvious that someone's a racist once somebody says, I'm not racist, all of my best friends are black, or I have a black friend, or something like that, right? So this idea of I'm not making a dumb American comment, I have American friends, right? Like, that obviously doesn't fly. Okay.
And sadly, when it comes to being ill-informed and dumb, America does have the damn championship on that matter.
So the whole point of me pointing out that this was that you were implicitly making a dumb American comment was that you were condescending to me in your video, right? So now when you're turning around and saying that no, America is full of ill-informed people, and in their description box you have all these statistics saying that we're ill-informed and blah blah blah. Okay, right? But that doesn't give you the right to treat any particular individual as though they're ill-informed on the basis that they're American, right? This is, again, I could play, you could play this same logic with black people in America, right? I mean, it doesn't. It's the same logic as racism. I don't mean to call you a racist, right? But it's the same logic, and again, interestingly, it's based on another fallacy of division. Just because America, as such, is statistically uninformed, it doesn't mean that each individual America is uninformed. It doesn't give you license to come at an American and with the assumption that he's uninformed. That's ridiculous. Furthermore, we're breaking out this sort of anti-America virus, and I see that you published another virus. What am I saying? You're breaking out this anti-America position, right? Or these ideas. Look, America is so uninformed, and then you published another video sort of backtracking and saying, well, the American political tradition has some weight. And first of all, fuck yes, we have some weight. I mean, we have Emma Goldman, we have Alexander Berkman, we have Chomsky, we have David Graeber, we had Howard Zinn, right? We have very prominent leftists, and I'm quite proud of that tradition. Now, it doesn't. The moment you start coming at people condescendingly on the grounds of some statistics, your claim to be left without borders is automatically out the window. Fact is, America, sure, no doubt we have our problems, right? But this is an inversion of patriotism, right? We're going to simply assume on the basis of geography, on the basis of lines on a map, that this person has this set of political knowledge. That's problematic. That's not left without borders. That's a fucking border, right? It's a political judgment on the grounds of a border. So you go on in this video to talk about, how the statistics of Americans, blah, blah, blah. You could, in America, substitute everything that you say about Americans with black people, and you would get a really, really, really racist commentary that you would actually see someone from the KKK probably make. Something like, statistically speaking, the black population makes up, a disproportionately large percentage of the prison system and blah, 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 right? Now, sure, that doesn't give me the right to, like, assume that every black person I meet is a criminal, right? Like, there are other economic and political factors that go into that. There's issues of structural racism within the American political system, et cetera, et cetera. And you can pick apart and analyze those issues. You can ask the question of, why does that statistic exist? Why is it the case that black people are disproportionately represented in the American penal system? It's an interesting question. But it doesn't give me the right to assume that a black person is a criminal, right? So all of these justifications for coming at me like I'm some stupid American, it's the same logic. And again, it's fascinating to me that you've picked two fallacies of division in a row. Social media is important, therefore I'm doing something politically important. I as an individual, right? Or and America is statistically, woefully uninformed. Therefore, you as an individual, I'm just going to assume that you're woefully uninformed. That, both of these are fallacies of division. It boggles my mind that you find either of these convincing. And I see some people in your comments saying like, yeah, no, social media is important. And yeah, social media is important. That's fine. Doesn't mean that there's any moral worth to me condemning people on YouTube. It doesn't translate, right? The statistics are meaningless to the individual. This is I mean, technically speaking, it's a fallacy of ecology, right? It's not fallacy of division is an overarching thing, right? But your reasoning here is fundamentally flawed.